What They Don't Tell You brings you real conversations about wealth management that real people have behind closed doors. We bring together clients and experts to talk about topics that go beyond the numbers. Women-owned businesses represent $117 billion in economic activity, and women currently control about $2.2 trillion in total assets. Yet, 73% are unhappy with their experience in the financial industry. In this episode, our advisors from across the country discuss the importance of women feeling represented and empowered in participating in wealth creation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of What They Don't Tell You. I'm Bernadette Churchill, Client Portfolio Manager at CWB McLean & Partners, a subsidiary of CWB Wealth Management. I'm joined today by Anne Bodden, Portfolio Manager at CWB Wealth Management, Anne Waldfong, Portfolio Manager at Leon Fraser, and Sam Chennaiah, Financial Consultant at TE Wealth. The emergence of women as financial forces has been building since the 1960s. Many social, economic, and political changes have set the stage for women to pursue higher education, get better job opportunities, narrow the pay gap, build wealth, and gain financial independence. Women are clearly important to the financial community, and yet 73% of women reported being unhappy with the service levels they've received within the financial services industry. In this episode, my colleagues and I will explore why the industry is missing the mark and why it's important to get it right and establish strong relationships with women. We've had questions submitted to us that we'll be answering today. So, Anne, why don't you get us started?
Perfect. So let's get started. Question 1 I have here is, how has the financial industry deterred women from participating?
That's a really good question there, Anne. Having been in the industry, not since the 1960s, but since the 1990s, I've seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of change in the industry from the time I started on Bay Street when we didn't have computers to today, to present. And my involvement as a women professional and working with women clients, I've seen a lot of evolution throughout the decades. So it's been improving. I have to say it's been improving, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. I have an example that I wanted to share with you of one of my colleagues who happens to be the director of marketing here at our very own firm. And she received a call from one of her financial institutions, another financial institution, where the advisor decided to give her a call and decided to speak to her about her portfolio and decided to teach her about the TSX and the S&P and what that meant and how she should be investing, not really taking the time to understand who she was and maybe asking her about her knowledge level. So I have to say, my colleague did say that she came away from that experience very disgruntled and disappointed being in the profession that she's in. However, on the other hand, I have clients of my own that I deal with that are professionals, are women, and haven't had the time to look after their own finances and things, focus on other areas of their life. So I've seen both sides of things. I've seen experienced women. I've seen novice women. It's evolving. It's both from the client, the women side of things, as well as the professional, the investment companies themselves.
We've heard a lot about representation in other parts of society. And I wonder if this might uncover one of the reasons why women are deterred from the wealth industry. I was reading a study conducted by McKinsey, and only 15% of financial advisors are women. I mean, when you don't see yourself represented, you may come to the conclusion that you don't belong. But as we all know, that's not the case. So I'm happy to see that that's changing.
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
I do think that it's something that we as women, and sorry, Sam, I know you are not part of the women group here, but you are part of the advisor group and you deal with women. So as women, it's up to us to take some initiative to move things along. Things don't just happen overnight. I do want to say that when I grew up, I went to school, and in class and in high school, I took home economics and typing, thank goodness. I didn't have to take any of the other things that the boys took, shop. And of course, today in today's society, that would not be the case. And I know some of my younger colleagues have kind of looked at me like I was cross-eyed when I made that statement earlier on.
Not quite cross-eyed, but I couldn't help but think that, when I went to high school, I took shop, and, I have actually absolutely really enjoyed it. And, I did take other things, and there was multiple things we took, but, you can't help but think that, it's come a long way, but there's still a ways to go. And at least, once it was kind of at a generation a little bit more recently that shop is what I took. So I was happy to kind of see that progression. And it's too bad to hear that at least you took typing, but unfortunately you couldn't take shop. But, things are moving along.
For sure. And that's what my experience is in the industry. It does take time. It will take time to evolve, and we're not there yet, but we're getting there. It's better than it was.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, if we think about it, a lot of the information that's been presented in the past maybe was tilted towards how a male would be more in tune to pick up that information. But, as an industry, we need to be more aware of that. Maybe that isn't the right way for a female to absorb the information or be attracted to it. So, of course, we always have, you can have both. So it just depends on how your client would like to receive that information.
So what is the harm if women don't proactively participate in the financial industry?
Well, that's a great question, Anne. I will take this one. If women don't actively participate in their finances, they're risking their overall well-being. Your financial well-being is your income security. And this directly impacts your standard of living, where you choose to live, how often you travel, how often do you want to eat out, or where you send your kids to school. So basically, it impacts every aspect of life. It boils down to your affordability and sustainability, which means really your survival. So this is so vital that you cannot really delegate it to someone else, because you want to be the author of your own destiny. So the earlier you start getting involved and learning things, the easier it gets. But it's never too late to start, because whether you are signing a contract, whether you're signing a mortgage, if you're guaranteeing a loan for somebody, you always need to know what you're getting yourself into. Otherwise, you can get into financial ruin, and it takes a much longer time to get yourself out of these situations. So that's why we always encourage people to be fully involved and be aware of what they're signing and what the obligations are. And the more prepared you are, the better you will be able to face life's challenges, because life always has a way of throwing a curveball. I mean, a lot of times I find when people are faced with a divorce or death of a spouse or bankruptcy or loss of losing a job. So all of these situations kind of, you want to be prepared ahead of time so that you can better handle these situations. So that's why it is not an option not to be involved or take a back seat, because it can really impact your overall well-being. So the more prepared you are, the better you can handle these situations in life.
Yeah, I can't help but completely agree. It's so detrimental to anyone to not actively participate. It's so important, I think, when you're going into any sort of kind of meeting about your finances, a mortgage, anything you're doing that has to do with your financial well-being, you need to make sure that you're there to ask questions and have your voice heard, because that diversity, I think, of thought process and all the different things that everybody goes through, it's important to have all those different sides there and have that diversity, I think, is a huge benefit. And, Sam kind of mentioned, it's imperative to make sure that you're a part of that conversation, because you never know when a time in your life might come that you have to, maybe make that decision independently. Unfortunately, I can think of a client or two that, their husband passes away and then they're in a situation where they weren't actively involved at some point. So they're not completely sure what assets they have, what liabilities they have, what situation they're in, just because they didn't, actively participate when they probably should have. So I think there's a lot of reasons to make sure you're actively participating, just to make sure that one day, if you ever have to make that decision on your own, that you can make it and that you know where you're at. There's so much to think about, and it's so important, to make sure that you're being an active participant in your future. One of my colleagues says, it's important to make sure that you're planning your retirement just as much as you plan your vacations. You shouldn't spend more time talking about Hawaii than maybe about your future and your finances. So I think it's important to make sure that you're actively participating.
That is so true, because I always say, you need to have a good financial planner or financial advisor where you have a holistic plan that you're reviewing annually to make sure that you're on track for retirement, and your financial well-being is always on top of mind, because this is something that is going to impact every aspect of your life.
Yeah, and it's not always a straight road. There's always things that come up and circumstances that change. So you always have to be on top or on cue with what's going on. You don't have to know everything. That's what you have us as advisors for, but you need to be involved.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really important to find an advisor that you identify with, that you feel comfortable in sharing, your life circumstances and your ambitions and goals, and they can really help guide you through these times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't help but think too that if, you're someone that knows you need to save, and at least you're doing something along the lines of saving, but maybe you're not taking that next step to figure out, what should I do with all these funds I've saved, and how should I invest them, or what's the goal for these funds, that maybe some people are even leaving money on the table. And I think that's something that an advisor could definitely also help you with, but it's something that I think a lot of people should definitely think about when it comes to what your goals are for the funds and what kind of money you might be leaving on the table if you're not proactively, I guess, participating in the industry. So.
Yeah, for example, if you want to save for your kids' education, if you want to have a little side fund for your vacation, or if you want to pay off your mortgage sooner, or, are you maximizing your TFSA, tax-free savings accounts, and your RRSPs, and which is better? Should I pay off my mortgage first, or should I do my RRSPs or TFSAs? And so I always say, mortgage is, the mortgage on your principal residence, because it is not tax deductible. We'd always start with the RRSP, then get the refund, and then pay down your mortgage. And then if you have any funds left, we would park it in the TFSA. So all of those things with a good advisor can navigate those questions. But savings is not enough, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You have to take the next step. I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty clear that it's super important to make sure that you're proactively participating, and that it's a huge detriment to remain on the sidelines. So we'll move to the next question, unless anybody has any last minute things to add. And I think it's another good segue. So how can women get started?
Well, I think watching this episode, you indicated that perhaps you have an awareness that it's time to start. And, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. I think that women sometimes believe that they need a significant amount of money to start investing, but really you can start with any amount. But the sooner you do it, the better. And also, don't think that you need to be over prepared. Like, women often think that they need to know a lot to start, but that's where a good advisor comes in, and you can learn as you go, and you might even actually know more than you think you do. So you might be surprised.
And with a good advisor, you can always find money where you thought didn't exist. For example, when I review somebody's tax returns, I can find so many ways to tax efficiently invest, making sure that they're taking full advantage of their RRSP deductions. Then, if they do have a mortgage, how do we pay the mortgage off sooner so that we can generate more savings? So by looking at the overall picture, there may be areas that you didn't realize that you could save a lot of money and then get started on your retirement savings. And so there has to be a balanced approach. And so finding a good advisor would be a good first step.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the way that women can participate, as I alluded to earlier, it's going to take time for us and for things to evolve. So we as individuals in society today have to take that initiative to teach that next generation client, teach that next generation of our kids, take them to the bank and show them how to open up an account and show them how money grows, show them their statement, give them some advice as to things as soon as they turn 18, open up a TFSA for them. You don't have to put the whole 6,000 in, but you can just open up the TFSA, and then they can start appreciating, see their name on the statement, and appreciate savings and ask more questions when they've got some quote unquote skin in the game. So I feel it's up to us to lead that next generation of kids, both clients and our own.
Yeah.
Yes, true. When you're getting started, you may not know what goals you have. So you want to sit down with an advisor, maybe think about, are you saving for retirement? Are you looking to have money set aside to send your kids to school? Perhaps you want to take that trip around the world or buy a vehicle. So it's important to sit down with somebody that you feel you can, voice your concerns and your fears and come up with those goals that you want to meet. And then also you need to, perhaps you're looking for an advisor. Maybe that's something that we should discuss as well. Some people don't have them. And then how do you go about finding an advisor? So a good way is to ask people that you trust for recommendations, and ask those people for recommendations and call those advisors up, have an interview with them, and don't feel obligated to work with them, because if you don't identify with them, you probably won't get that much out of the relationship. And I think that's really important, because you have to build trust. And if you don't trust that person, it's hard to accept the advice that they're giving you.
For sure.
Yeah. Very good points. I think, there's 4 of us here as well. You can always call any of us. So that's a good starting point. But if not, what I do a lot of the time when I'm trying to do something that I don't know how to do, I look it up on the internet. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think asking family and friends is a really great way to go. If you're looking for a dentist, you don't hesitate to ask your family and friends, what dentist do you use? And maybe people feel it's a little bit different about finances, but it's not. Just ask them if there's someone they really connect with or somebody that they know, and go and interview them like Bernadette said. And if it's not a fit, don't worry about it. I think that's a really good point. And it kind of brings me into the next question, unless anybody has anything else to add. The next question is it better for a woman to have a woman advisor? And I think it's a really interesting question. And I know the misconception is that women maybe need or want a woman advisor because maybe they feel they'll understand them better or they can see themselves in that person. But I think really more importantly, it's fit. And I think what we're looking at when we meet with clients, or hopefully when clients interview or meet with us, is that really we're trying to match the portfolio manager with the client. And we're making sure and hoping to make sure that that is a fit in terms of comfortability, in terms of personality. And it really is about that. And it's about relationships a lot more than it's about numbers or, necessarily kind of the more nitty gritty things when it comes down to it. It really is that you want to find an advisor, I think, that you really fit with.
Well, traditionally, the industry has sort of been a one size fits all, but it's really changing. And we need to realize that that approach isn't going to work anymore. Women are going to seek advisors that deliver services in a way that resonates with them. And it's up to advisors to figure out what will resonate with the client. Women hold tremendous economic power and can force change. So really, it's time to stop trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
I agree 100% that it's all about that fit, because of course we have Sam here with us, and I know for a fact he has both men and women clients. So it's just proof it doesn't matter.
Yes, I've had some very, very interesting women clients, and most of my clients, I get them through referrals, because referrals are one of the greatest things, because once they have a very good relationship with the advisor, they're very, very happy to recommend all of their friends. So you really have a good relationship, a trusting advisor relationship, so that everybody feels that they are being understood and the needs are being met.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that kind of what everybody's looking for might be a little bit different, but generally I think most people just want someone they can talk to and feel comfortable with them when they meet with them. So yeah, definitely we're in a relationship business here. We're not in a transactional type business. So I think we can all agree that clients should feel comfortable when they're looking for who to kind of hire as their advisor, that make sure it's a good fit. And women don't need to have a women advisor. I think it's not about gender. It's about kind of comfortability and fit. So, we'll move on to the next question unless anybody has anything to add to that one. But it kind of comes back to that thought of, that we're even asking the question that do women need a women advisor? And the question is, how can advisors be better?
I think advisors need to take the time to listen. I always start my meeting with a review of the client's goals and objectives. And once I have made an exhaustive list of the goals and objectives, I break it down to measurable, line items that we can actually cross off every time, when we have our annual reviews. We have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. And so always before the meeting, when we start the meeting, we start with the goals and objectives. And I also try and be inclusive. If there are two partners, I want to make sure that both partners are being heard. And if sometimes one person is too quiet because one partner is kind of taking all the time or does all the talking, in those situations, I might even schedule 2 separate meetings so that I make sure that both are heard and understood, and that I'm taking their concerns into my planning and my strategies, and I ensure that they are adequately addressed. For example, one of the spouses might be more aggressive in their investment style. They may want to take on more risk. And then the other partner might feel, no, I want to be more conservative. I don't want any risk. So how do you bring these two together? So when I build a portfolio, I would make sure that the partner who is more aggressive, their portfolio is a growth portfolio, and the partner who is more conservative, they have a balanced or a conservative balanced portfolio, so that they both feel comfortable with the approach. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable or left out or not being heard. So that's very, very important for me. And I also try and see what age and stage they are in their journey. So some people might be just starting their investment life and their career. They might be very start of the whole journey. Some people may be midway through, so they maybe have accumulated some level of assets. Then there are other people who are quite mature and have substantial assets. And so the strategies that you come up with a lot more assets is quite different from somebody who is just starting with nothing and trying to grow their wealth. So those things, so play an important role in how you come up with strategies for them. So those are the things that I find that we pay attention to, and we make sure that we are relevant and being specific to their situation. They always need to feel connected and understood, and the conversation is always different based on the individual that you're dealing with. It's not like one size fits all. Everybody has a different story, and the journey is different. So it's it's actually a real privilege to be part of the journey. And when you start with a client and when they were very young and they're starting with nothing, and then for somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, now 20 years later, to see them achieving all their goals and being part of the journey is one of the greatest rewards of our industry, I find. So I find that, when you're starting with younger people, if you have a lot of assets, people want to raise their children as normal as possible. And so how do you kind of, help them to be self-made? One of the greatest joys in life is being self-made. And sometimes giving things too early to children might take that motivation away from them to be independently successful. So then what we try and do is we set them up with training portfolios. We don't give them a lot of money, but we start them small and then help them to make it on their own. And so the idea is that you want to make sure that everybody can start to set goals and work towards the goals and help them to get there. So that's kind of our role.
Yeah, it's really like Advisor 101, Sam, isn't it? It's like, yes. Know your client. If it's back to basics, know your client. Could you imagine how different that experience for our marketing director would have been if that advisor had just taken the time to know his client? Just a different outcome, different experience for both of them. So that's key. And a lot of us get wrapped up as advisors with our clients, thinking that we have to have these wonderful strategies and ways to deal with our client. We just need to know who they are and understand who they are. And also, I feel, again, back to basics, being honest and transparent with your client. Don't be afraid to tell them that, hey, you're doing a great job. You have enough money to retire. You're going to be okay. Or, whoa, hang on a second, Mr. or Ms. Client. You need to change some inputs here. You need to save more. You need to earn more. You need to work longer. Just be honest, and they'll thank you for it in the end. So those are some key things that advisors need to do. I think we all need to do a little better at.
Yeah, I think you need to be a champion for your client. You need to be the person that is going to lead them in the right direction and perhaps tell them when they're veering off course, and making sure that you listen to them and that, that they're able to, that they're happy with what they're doing and that they don't have any concerns with how things are going.
I completely agree with you all. Really thank you for those amazing answers. And we're at our last question. I feel like time's flown by. So the last question is kind of the namesake of our episode here. What don't they tell you about women in the wealth industry?
Well, I'll start off there, Anne. I feel it's not about generalizing about women and wealth. In this case, one size, as Sam said, one size does not fit all. It's about creating an inclusive, equal playing field for wealth creation for everyone.
I think that money is power, and wealth creation should be universal. And you know what? Those barriers are meant to be shattered. So don't resist. Go ahead and help us shatter them. You need to offer the ability of living the life you desire to everyone. And that's what wealth can do.
I will say income security is your financial well-being, and it is so important that it cannot be delegated. So be the author of your own destiny. No one else will, basically you want to be the author of your own destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I can't help but think after all of these questions we've gone through that every single day is an opportunity for us to continue to be a part of this change and continue this shift in the industry. I would say be confident and just take a hold of your financial future. So that's our episode for today. What an amazing wealth of information. It's been incredible to connect, even virtually with the three of you. I felt it's been so powerful to come together. Our businesses are coming together, but to come together for this episode was amazing to share our thoughts and our values. Feeling very lucky to have been surrounded by you guys today. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. I hope it was helpful. Remember that at CWB Wealth Management, all of our advisors are here to help. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, subscribe to our content, follow us on social media. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on What They Don't Tell You.